Welcome back, Rockstars, to my top 5 Pokemon of Scarlet and Violet. So now for today's video, we will not be including any Pokemon from Area 0. Now the reason for this is simply because you can't access Area 0 until you finish all 3 stories. The Team Fall story, the Titan Pokemon, and Gym Challenges. So it's not in the main category of gameplay or story, so we're not going to include it. Starting at the bottom, and now we're here. That didn't land? Well, okay, whatever. Number 5 is the name that I still can't say, whatever it is. I like this Pokemon because it's a simple design. It isn't a Pokemon like a copy of something else. It's Pikachu line. But basically, it's being a rock type, visually it might be a little squarish or whatever, but Nocli's evolutions all have different color layers, kind of like rock formations could be, depending on materials and how long it takes, for them to formation and actually become solidified. Well, it's got the colors of white and brown for the rock and the salt of it, so which is super interesting. Plus, with the high HP and defense stats, it gives it a really solid defense, especially with some of the abilities like sturdy, so obviously you don't have a one-hit KO Pokemon, or clear body, so you don't have any stat loss. But my favorite out of all of them, signature ability, which is Purifying Salt, which allows it to take half damage from ghost type moves, and it can't be status, which is a really unique ability that goes with its both visual appearance and just kind of overall typing, but really kind of ties in together with its signature move, Salt Cure. Salt Cure is super interesting because it's a similar move to like Stealth Rock or a Burn Effect or a Poison. It does chip damage over time, dealing an 1/8 of damage, but also has extra damage to Steel or Water types, which as a rock type move, but it's a salt, the salt mineral, it really makes sense with that. And as far as I know, there's no way to actually cure it like a burn or a poison, so that's super cool as well. Moving on to number 4 is Annihilate. Finally, the evolution to Primeape. It's a similar feeling to Dunsparce and Unfinished Evolution line, except this one isn't a disappointment like Dunsparce. Dunsparce, oh my god, why do this to us? Okay, so start off with Annihilate. His visual appearances are absolutely just fantastic. The way he looks based off the continuation of Primeape is just really solid, and on top of that, it goes great with his overall typing. Plus, his typing is almost one of a kind. And what I mean by that is if you see, he's a ghost fighting type. The only other Pokemon that I've been able to remember or find anytime I look it up is the legendary Pokemon Marshadow. This makes him the only non-legendary fighting ghost type Pokemon. Annihilate has above over 500 stat total, which is really solid, honestly, and above 90 average speed base, which is super good. So for the most part, he can have a slightly higher speed than a lot of Pokemon, so that's really good, especially with his above average HP and physical attack. Makes him definitely one for you to look out for in battles, or that you definitely want to go ahead and pick up and add to your team. Coming in at number 3 is Clodsire, Wooper's new evolution. Now this one was really weird for me because I love the concept of regional evolution forms, but Nintendo doesn't always get it right. See, some regional forms are just different looks, or just basically an extreme randomizer version of a Pokemon, which Nintendo has said multiple times that they feel is cheating in a completely different way, because it's a type change completely, but it's cheating. But they can do it for original forms a little, then mainly just color. Sometimes it's kind of all they change. Sometimes they just change the color, and that's really weird. So I was super happy to be wrong about this, because yes, Wooper is just Wooper, but it's different colored with a different typing. But its evolution Clodsire is completely different from its original evolution Quagsire. Clodsire, Quagsire. I love that they still sound similar, but are spelled for the most part differently. I really like that, and it's pretty awesome. With a Poison Ground typing, it makes it actually a pretty dangerous combination, especially since some of the abilities are pretty well out there, like Poison Point. So obviously Poison Point is one of the older abilities. It has a 30% chance on contact with the Pokemon to poison your enemies, but with this ability in combination with some of your poison moves, it actually makes the moves like Toxic completely useless. Now let me explain why that is. If you have a move that has a 30% chance to deal damage, and then a 30% chance to poison that Pokemon when dealing damage, then you have Poison Point and they're a physical attacker and they hit you, that's another 30% chance that you can get them with poison effect. So it's almost like 60% chance, if you get hit with a physical attacking Pokemon, to be able to poison that Pokemon. So it kind of makes moves like Toxic just kind of completely useless. But even with only a 30% chance to poison on some of your moves. The unaware ability is really interesting because it allows them to ignore the stat changes of a Pokemon when they are dealing damage to the Pokemon or receiving damage from the Pokemon. So that Pokemon stat changes, if that Clodsire has that ability, doesn't matter whether they are boosted defense, HP, attack, or they've lowered their stats. So it doesn't matter whatsoever because it ignores it, which is really interesting. But its most overpowered ability overall is definitely Water Absorb. Now, we've seen a bunch of Pokemon with similar abilities like Storm Drain or Water Absorb, especially, you know, one of the big ones is Shelos's evolution Gastrodon is a big dangerous, you know, Cynthia runs that, and it's a hard Pokemon to deal with, especially with Storm Drain. But it is really interesting to give it to a poison ground type because obviously ground has a weakness, not a super effective weakness, but it's a very effective weakness to water typing. And because of the poison ground typing, it knocks out the ability to use water if it has that ability. It knocks out the ability to use grass against Clodsire because of the poison typing, leaving the only real weaknesses to be up there to be Ghost, Flying, and Bug type Pokemon, which is, you know, overall not super mainstream Pokemon types. Now, coming in at number 3 is obviously, this is one of my favorite Pokemon from the Scarlet and Violet games, is the starter Pokemon, the Fire Croc Fuecoco. Now, if you guys didn't know this guy was going to be on the list, then you guys have a bad opinion, bad taste, no offense, but it's just the truth. He is the best starter Pokemon, which we'll discuss in a completely separate video on another time. Fuecoco is so great because it's a crocodile based evolution obviously line, so the entire evolution line is based off a crocodile in real life. Obviously that's the IRL inspiration, but it isn't just a direct copy. Yes, it's got a very similar physical design and everything, but in evolutions, for thank God, keep its design overall. It doesn't randomly get on its back legs like every cat evolution ever in Pokemon, or except for Persian, or even they even did it with the other Pokemon. I don't remember. They did it with the cat Pokemon, and then Quaxly, which I guess was already on 2 legs. But that's final evolution. It's just I don't even want to get into the physical design of that evolution. It's nuts. But they keep the design theme overall as a Fire Croc, which is just super good. It's super clean. It's super consistent. Consistency is really big. But its Fire Ghost typing is what gives it such a big advantage. Now the reason for this is because it's got a Ghost typing as a secondary typing right off the bat. It doesn't have quite as strong of a weakness when it comes to certain typings, and that's always, you know, dual weakness back and forth, figuring all that out. But it mainly allows him just a lot of diversity with his moves, and the reason I say that is because of Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is a move that with its stab is obviously 1.25 times more powerful, but 1.5 times more powerful, but the important part is it has a chance to drop the special defense of the Pokemon you're attacking with. Now you might be asking, why is that so good since a bunch of Pokemon can learn Shadow Ball? Well, one, obviously it keeps its stab with it even if it terraforms, but second of all, it's so good because dropping special defense is the perfect combination with its signature move Torch Song. If you don't know what Torch Song does, it basically is it's a really good fire type move. It's 80 base power, which is only 10 base power less than Flamethrower, the usual go-to fire type move, at the same accuracy of 100%, and it also has the bonus of raising your special attack by 1 stage. So with the combination of Shadow Ball, might have a chance to drop special defenses and raise your special attack from Torch Song in case you need to switch up typings but you still want to get stat differences. It's a great way to go at it, and it's absolutely fantastic. So there's no really reason not to do that. It's such a perfect combination of moves, and since it's a starter, the base stats are automatically just really solid as well, so you know this Pokemon doesn't have super low stats. Now before we get into our final top slot Pokemon, let's go over a quick summary of some runner-up Pokemon, starting with Lokix. Lokix is a really cool overall design. It's a bug dark type, but it really fails because they gave him no stats. The actual appearance of Lokix, its bug dark typing, is really solid. It's got dark colors. It's obviously a bug type. I love the design of the legs that jump up and can prepare for defense but really exhaust it afterwards. That's really cool, but sadly they just didn't give him the opportunity or the stats to really be used in a real battle. Coming up next would have to be Squivolian. Squivolian is really cool because it has to come up next. It's not quite powerful enough to make the list or any list, but it's not mediocre either. So Squivolian is a grass fire type, and when you look at it, it's clearly based off like peppers, you know, a vegetable, which I'm okay with because it's not the thing that, it doesn't just stare you in the face when you look at it. So I'm okay with that visual representation and how they constructed that, because it's not just, oh, we're obviously based off, you know, hot and not has hot peppers, blah. So it's really nice. So grass fire, a cool typing combination, but once again his stats just aren't super high, which is no problem because they're not worse than mediocre either. It's just that he doesn't have an exact fit into really any place to being on a high tier Pokemon list for a team, and he's not for a low tier Pokemon list for the team. He's one of those mediocre Pokemon that you're happy with using, but he's not the best either. Our final rep-up Pokemon, which is a really close one, I almost added this just because it's super neat, is Tinkatonk. Tinkaton. I actually like Tinkaton's design overall a lot. It really is. It's a very obvious fairy type. I love the secondary steel typing. It's got some overall abilities that are pretty solid, and it's got a slightly higher base stats for speed and, special defense. And the rest of its stats are pretty solid overall too. They're not super minuscule or anything, but they're not crazy either. It's just the fact that this Pokemon is, once again, it's one of those Pokemon that it has the mediocre stats, so it didn't quite get added to the list. But I think the overall appearance of the entire evolution line is super cool. It's like a kind of like a pink, cute, adorable thing that you want to capture, and then over time it gets stronger and more menacing, but at the same time kind of keeping that cute fairy type charm. I really love this design overall. If it was based off pure looks and visual representation, he definitely would have been on the list, but this is about kind of an overall design, so it didn't quite make it. Now coming in at number 1 is have to be Charcadet. Now technically it's Charcadet's evolutionary forms, but I have to put Charcadet, and the reason I say that is because Charcadet has 2 different evolutionary forms, Armorage and Celeridge. Now the reason this is number 1 is let's go over the basic reasons. First of all, the different typings of being Fire Ghost and Fire Psychic is super cool. The first Fire Psychic and the only one outside of Vivian or Vixen, the legendary mythical Pokemon that comes to mind, is the starter Kalos Pokemon, and that's the only Fire Psychic type that I really know of. So having another Fire Psychic type is obviously just really cool. This puts it as a special attacker since it's a Psychic type, because not a lot of physical attackers for Ghost or Psychic type Pokemon, but definitely more Ghost than Psychic type Pokemon. So this Armorage is actually a Fire Psychic special attacker, which a decent speed overall, decent HP, just really low attack, and overall has solid HP and just defenses and stats. So it's super nice having a different typing overall, and it's nice to have 2 different evolution options, which makes it so nice because we have a whole lot of Pokemon, but not a whole lot of different split path evolutions. And the sum that we do have, one's usually a beautiful collection Pokemon, and one's more of a battle Pokemon, while Celeridge and Armorage are both battle or collection Pokemon. Their overall physical appearance for each evolution line is really cool, with like the armor knowing it's a bit more defensive, or the swords on the hand so it's a bit more of a physical attacker. Really shows the difference in the design and time put into these specific Pokemon, and I absolutely love it. While Celeridge is a Fire Ghost type, it's a more physical attacker with a slightly higher base speed stat, but a slightly lower of defense and special defense stats overall for this Pokemon. It's super sick. Now they don't have a whole lot of ability differences. They both have Flash Fire and Weak Armor, but that's a part of having this evolution line, so it's more about style and I think it's really cool. And having a split option of evolution paths that can go either side and to both 5 different battles, which is something that just doesn't come around at all. Plus, if you look at their stats, Armorage has an overall base 125 special attack, which is actually really good for the most part, but it does have a low speed stat of 75, so if you don't use all of that balance, Celeridge has an 85 to 90 speed stat, but his attack is equal to that 125, but his defense is really not, especially so there's slight differences, but it's really good. Especially because it's not a simple, evolve that day, evolve that night.